always from the heart of the city, and now on demand 24/7 on the CHFI website. This is the soundtrack to what is as shaded as speech. And I'm Don Jackson, around the world on the internet. Finally, Indigo spoke, much more quietly than all the others, but with just as much determination. Think of me. I am the color of silence. You hardly notice me, but without me, you all become superficial. I represent thought and reflection, twilight and deep water. You need me for balance and contrast, for prayer and inner peace. An excerpt from The Colors of Friendship. Its author unknown. Edith Wharton in The Reef wrote, "Silence may be as variously shaded as speech." This hour, what is learned in silence. With Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Jacksoul on a lonesome highway, and Gladys night, and neither one of us. I'm Don Jackson with Lovers and Other Strangers. It's Thursday, November the 19th, 2009. I hope it's a quiet moment of reflection for you. Thomas Carlyle said, "Speech is of time. Silence is of eternity." We sometimes talk to fill the silence. A quiet moment shared between friends can be intimidating. But the silence between lovers can be very revealing. John Cage, in something he wrote called Silence, said, "There is no such thing as an empty space or an empty time. There is always something to see, something to hear. In fact, try as we may to make a silence, we cannot." The Doobie Brothers, Minute by Minute, and Blue Rodeo, and Bulletproof. Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. I've always liked this sentiment, a few short lines, but they speak volumes. Charlotte Bronte wrote, "The human heart has hidden treasures, in secret kept, in silence sealed." Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Edwin McCain and I'll Be. Boyz II Men in the Still of the Night, and Colbie, Caillat, Fallin for You. I'm Don Jackson with Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. You might remember that it is the male nightingale that sings so beautifully. As it said in a past edition of the Britannica, his melody is the song of wooing to his mate, which remains silent in some neighboring bush or tree. Out into the evening silences pours his song, so full of fire and yet of sweetness. Not until the female has hatched out her brood does the male cease his singing. Of course, then, in order not to pose a danger to his nest, Sarah Teasdale wrote, "You will know then all that in silence you always knew. Though I have loved, I loved no other as I love you." Lovers and Other Strangers in the Silence. From iTunes and CHFI.com. Fleetwood Mac, Over My Head, and RyanDan with The Face. I'm Don Jackson with Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Sir Thomas Browne had this to add to the silence. Sure, there is music even in the beauty and the silent note which Cupid strikes, far sweeter than the sound of an instrument. There is something silent about the month of November. It's almost like the calm before the storm of winter. Thomas Hood wrote, "I saw old autumn in the misty morn stand shadowless like silence, listening to silence." Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Annie Lennox with No More I Love Yous. Norah Jones, Don't Know Why, and Neil Diamond, and I'm glad you're here with me tonight. I'm Don Jackson with Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. There may be an oath of silence that is shared by some in the fragrant gardens of paradise. The poet Sarah Teasdale hinted at it in the poem Those Who Love. Those who love the most do not talk of their love. Francesca, Guinevere, Deirdre, Isolde, Eloise, in the fragrant gardens of heaven, are silent, or speak, if at all, of fragile, inconsequent things. And a woman I used to know who loved one man from her youth against the strength of the fates, fighting in somber pride, never spoke of this thing. But hearing his name by chance, a light would pass over her face. Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Good night, sweet dreams. I'm Don Jackson.